All right, let's dive in. Today, we're breaking down a book that is an absolute classic in Silicon Valley, and really for managers everywhere, Andrew Grove's High Output Management. We're going to unpack the principles that have shaped huge companies, from Intel to Google, all through Grove's incredibly simple and kind of brilliant analogy of just making breakfast.
So let's start with a question. What on earth can a simple 3-minute egg teach you about being a good manager? Well, according to Andy Grove, the answer is pretty much everything. You can forget the corporate boardroom for a second. Grove throws us right into the kitchen. And he argues that if you can truly understand how to make a perfect breakfast, you've got the key to understanding basically any production process, whether you're shipping software or building cars. So here's the challenge. It sounds simple, right? Serve one customer a perfect 3-minute soft-boiled egg, some buttered toast, and a fresh coffee. But here's the catch. Everything has to land on their table at the exact same moment, perfectly hot and fresh. This isn't just about cooking. It's a masterclass in timing, quality, and managing costs. So how do you actually pull this off? You can't just wing it. No way. You have to map out the entire process, kind of like you see in this diagram here. It's all about choreographing every single step to get that perfect simultaneous delivery. And this whole exercise brings us to one of the most important concepts in the entire book. See, every single process, from making breakfast to launching a satellite, has what Grove calls a limiting step. So what is a limiting step? Well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the one part of the whole process that takes the absolute longest. It's your bottleneck. It's the pacer. Everything else in your schedule has to be planned backwards from this one single critical step. Back in our little breakfast factory, the egg is our limiting step. It takes the longest. So we start the egg first. Then we work backwards from there, timing the toast and the coffee so they finish at the exact same moment the egg is ready. The egg is basically the sun that all the other tasks have to orbit around. Okay, seems simple enough, right? But we all know reality is way messier. What happens when some new problem, some new constraint just throws a wrench into your perfectly planned system? And this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say we only have one super slow toaster. Suddenly, making the toast takes even longer than boiling the egg. The toaster is now our new limiting step, and the entire production flow has to be completely re-engineered around it. The big lesson here? Your bottleneck isn't set in stone. It can, and it probably will, change. Okay, so let's scale this whole thing up. As our little breakfast operation grows from one kitchen into a huge factory, we can't be there micromanaging every single egg and every piece of toast. It's just not possible. We need a new model for management, and Grove calls this managing the black box. You know, this black box idea is so powerful because it's so simple. You've got your inputs, like eggs and bread, you've got labor, and you've got your output, the finished breakfast. As a manager, your job isn't to live inside that box. Your job is to manage what goes in and what comes out, and to strategically create little windows to peek inside and see what's going on. So, how do you monitor this black box? With indicators. Grove gives us 5 daily checks to look at: the sales forecast, your raw material inventory, the condition of your equipment, your manpower, and maybe most importantly, customer feedback, complaints. But here's a really critical insight from Grove. You can never rely on just a single indicator. You have to use what he calls paired indicators. For instance, if you only track your inventory levels, you might be tempted to cut them down to save money. But if you pair that indicator with another one, like customer shortages, you suddenly see the hidden cost of that decision. Pairing them up gives you the full, true picture. Okay, so we've journeyed from the kitchen all the way to the factory floor. Now we're at the absolute heart of the book, the manager's actual role in all of this. And it really all boils down to one powerful concept: managerial leverage. To really get our heads around this idea of leverage, we have to ask a very fundamental question. What is a manager's true output? What do they actually produce? When Grove asked managers this exact question, he got all the answers you'd expect: making decisions, giving direction, training people. But here's Grove's brilliant insight. These are not outputs. They're activities. They're what a manager does, not what they produce. And here it is. This is the core idea straight from Grove himself. A manager's output is the output of their team plus the output of any other teams they influence. Your success isn't measured by how busy you are, it's measured by the increased output of everyone around you. And that is the essence of managerial leverage. It's the measure of your impact. A high leverage action is when you do something small that generates a huge increase in output for your team. A low leverage action is when you bust your butt and get very little to show for it. Your entire goal as a manager is to relentlessly hunt for those high leverage activities. So if that's the goal, how do you actually do it? How do you get high leverage? Well, let's look at the practical, everyday tools that Grove says every manager needs to use. I love this slide because it just lays it all out so clearly. On one side, you have the high leverage stuff that multiplies your team's effectiveness, training them, good planning, solid performance reviews. And on the other side, you've got the stuff that actually has negative leverage, things that destroy output, waffling on a decision, micromanaging, or just showing up to a meeting unprepared. Making good decisions, man, that is a massive leverage multiplier. And Grove's three-step model is legendary. Step 1, you have to have free, open, vigorous debate. Step 2, once the decision is made, it has to be crystal clear, no ambiguity. And step 3, everyone, and this is key, everyone has to fully commit to that final decision, even if they disagreed with it earlier. This is that famous disagree and commit principle that has powered so much innovation. Now, of all the tools a manager has, Grove is probably most passionate about this simple one-on-one meeting. He sees it as the absolute best place for teaching, for learning, and for getting aligned. And the math he does is just staggering. A single 90-minute meeting can improve an employee's performance for the next 2 weeks. I mean, just think about that return on investment. It's absolutely incredible. So, I'll leave you with this question. After everything we've talked about, from the breakfast factory all the way to managerial leverage, what is the single highest leverage thing that you can do today to boost your team's output? Because finding the answer to that question, well, that's your first step to becoming a truly high output manager.